Hello again, it's Miss Jones from Sew with Miss Jones. The next step that we have to do is fold the long sides of the apron, and we can also fold the top at the same time or after we do the long sides to get them ready to do the slip stitching. So we have already drawn this 5/8 of an inch line in, and what the directions tell you to do are to fold to the line, so fold that cut edge to the line and press it down. Now I found that with this fabric, because it's cotton, if you take your fingers and you just kind of push down, it will fold and give you a crease. So I have this thing that I do in the way that I pin things and the way I fold things, and it's called, I made this up, it's really silly. It's 2 ends first, middle, middle, middle. So I already did one end, and now what I'm going to do is the other end, and I'm going to do maybe about a couple of inches of the other end. And I'm just going to, I folded over the raw edge to the line, and then I'm just pressing it with my fingers. I am not rubbing back and forth because I do not want to stretch this side out. So I did it on one end, folded it up to that line, and I did it on the other end. And now I'm going to do the middle. So 2 ends first, middle, middle, middle. The reason why I started doing that when I do pinning is students would say, these things aren't the same size. And I'm like, yeah, they are, because when you cut them out, they were the same size. The problem is that a lot of times when we pin things together, we can stretch one or push one a little bit more with our hands and in putting the pins in. And when you do that, then they do come out uneven. But if you start by matching up the top and the bottom and start there, you pin the 2 ends first, then you do the middle. And right now we're not pinning, but I have the same issue. If I do this and I just go from the top to the bottom, it is likely that I will stretch this edge. And I'm going to slide the camera in here so you can see what I am doing, because it's not really tricky, it's not really difficult to do, but it just, you just have to think about it a little bit. So I folded this over to the edge, so the cut edge is over next to that line, and then I'm just pressing down with my fingers. Okay, so 2 ends first, middle, middle, middle. I'm going to go halfway between the end. And if it would help to put a pin in here, you don't have to put a ton of pins in, but if it would help to put a pin in the end and then maybe one in the middle to help you get this part done, you can certainly do that. So I have put a pin on the end, the upper end, and the middle. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to fold this over, and you don't want to just flop it over, because you want this to be really even and neat. So you're going to fold it over right to the line. And again, I don't want to press back and forth like that because I don't want to stretch it. And I'm just using my fingers to press that down. And the crease is staying pretty well. All right, so I've done the middle of that. And now I need to get down here. I'm going to put a pin on the end down here. Let me slide this up just a little bit more because nope, maybe I am at the end. Here we go. Here's the end. So I'm going to put a pin here. The other thing that happens sometimes is when you're pinning like this and you have an end, if you're not careful, you're going to end up with like a dog ear sticking out. And that's, again, just from stretching. So I have the middle pinned and I have the end pinned. I'm going to fold to the middle right here, just to the line. Make sure that all lines up with my fingers, and I'm just pressing down with my fingers. And I have about another 2 inches right here that I have to do. And that is all pressed down. I'm not done yet. So what the directions tell you to do next is to fold this over one more time. So I'm going to take the pins out because I'm going to do the same thing. Let me back up a little bit here. I'm going to start at the top, and what it's telling me is So I'm going to start at the top, and what I have to do then is keep this tucked under and flip it over right on that line. And this is really not that hard to do, but what you don't want to do is just flop it over, because this total fold over is only supposed to be 5/8 of an inch. So if you look at this right now, it's probably a little less than 3/8. Yeah, it's a little less than 3/8. And when we fold it again, it should also be a little less than 3/8. So I folded it over very carefully right on that line. And now I am going to put a pin in here at the end. So again, 2 ends first, middle, middle, middle. So I'm going to come down to the end, fold it over, make sure you're holding it so you're flipping it right on that line. Press it down with your fingers and put a pin in. Okay, and then I am going to zoom in while I do the middle just so you can see. So I'm zooming in the middle just so you can see my step. So I'm keeping this really flat. I'm not just like flopping over. I'm keeping this really flat, and I'm going to take my fingers and hold that and then flop it over so that it is right on that line that you drew earlier. And I'm going to put a pin in here. Then I'm going to, again, grab it. I'm going to grab it right where that fold is. And I don't want it to move. I don't want to just flop over because it'll end up being too wide. I'm going to grab it right there and fold it over right on that line. And I'm putting some more pins in. And the pins down here should be maybe, you could probably do them with maybe about 1 inch in between each one. It doesn't have to be completely pinned, but you do want to keep this all nice and flat while you are sewing. I'm going to put one more right here because I don't want that to wiggle around. One here. So I did 2 ends first. I did one of the middles, and now I'm going to do the other middle. So let me get this right about there. Okay, so it's all flat again. Get that right flat there. Flip it right over on that line. Make sure it's parallel. You want this to be parallel all along here with nothing poking out. It shouldn't look like it's got humps in it. Okay, and again, I'm pressing down with my hands to help me with this. I would not use the wooden iron to do this step simply because the wooden iron could end up stretching this, and then your apron's going to look a little funky. So I wouldn't recommend using the wooden iron for this because it could stretch the edge. Okay, another pin here, and I think maybe 2 more down here. Now I'm going to do the exact same thing to the other side. I'm also going to do it to the top, although your guide sheet tells you to do it a little bit later. But none of those things get crossed by anything else, so I'm going to do all of that first. I'm not going to do the bottom yet because I want the 2 sides stitched before I flip up the bottom. But the bottom, that process is going to be the same. I just want to make sure that the 2 ends are stitched so that when I do that 2 ends first, middle, middle, middle on the bottom, it's you're going to have nice, neat corners. Nice, neat corners on your apron. Okay, I'm going to finish pinning, and then my next step is to slip stitch this all the way through. And this slip stitching is slightly different than what we did before, and I will show you an example of that at the beginning of the next video. Bye for now.